The Marlins beaten at home against the Phillies. However, they did walk it off to avoid the sweep. The Marlins getting a ton of pitching back. Is that going to change the fortunes on the field? Tons to get into. This is Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked on Marlins. This is your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up, of course, at Miami Marlins _UK. If you are listening to the pod, firstly, hello and happy Monday. Hope everyone is doing well. Thanks for making Locked on Marlins your first listen of the day. This is your team every day, of course. There is a YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe over on the YouTube channel and particularly join in the comments section for every single episode. Appreciate everyone. It's great to hear your feedback, your thoughts. What are you thinking? And the questions too. So I appreciate you guys. We've got a packed show today. Always. It's always a packed show on a Monday because, you know, you've got a Friday game, a Saturday game, a Sunday game. Tons to get into. Big series. The Marlins were beaten at home 2-1 against the Phils. The Phils overpowered the Marlins in the first two games. It looked like they were going to do the same in game three. However, the Marlins offense rallied. It rallied. The bullpen held firm at the back end anyway. And they walk it off. Very, very 2023. Love to see it. This episode is sponsored by our good friends over at PrizePicks. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So, guys, for me, where I want to start today, I want to start with the starting pitching. The rotation has had a double shot in the arm. Jesus Luzardo, back. Braxton Garrett, back. Trevor Rogers, he pitched, but not so good. We're going to talk about Trevor. I mean, I spent a whole episode just last week basically signaling that, you know, should Edward Cabrera ever start another game for the Marlins? He looks like a reliever. The body of work is great enough. I'm starting to question whether that same methodology should be applied to Trevor Rogers. But let's not start on a negative. Let's start with the positives. I also want to talk about Andrew Nardi. Because again, Andrew Nardi, with runners on, where that was his specialism last year, this year, not so much. He's the worst reliever in baseball this year in terms of inherited runners. So the role that he was a specialist in is now the complete opposite. That is bullpens for you, baby. Tanner Scott, though, on the flip side, is back. All in caps, uppercase, bold, italics. You name it, Tanner Scott is back, baby. We also need to talk about some swing speed. This is the most topical conversation of the day, of yesterday, but of today, where Savant is now publishing swing speed for players. And StatCast, I guess. So that's been interesting. It highlights, you know, is there a correlation? I guess there is. Luis Arias, best hitter in baseball. The slowest swing speed in baseball. Make it make sense. I also want to talk about Paul Skeens and Yuri Perez. A lot of hype over Skeens this weekend. For some, the best pitching prospect in baseball. Yuri Perez, unfortunately, out of sight, out of mind. I think everyone's forgetting about Yuri Perez. Paul Skeens at this point, he's not in Yuri's, he's not even in his class. Nowhere near it. Let's see. The proof will be in the pudding for him. I get it. We're hyped for prospects. That's what baseball's about. But come on. Skeens, he's nowhere near the ability of Yuri Perez. Yuri Perez was 2 years younger than him, pretty much. Anyway, say that quietly. Let's talk about the pitchers that we do have available. I want to talk about the starting pitchers. I'm going to go backwards. I want to talk about Braxton Garrett, who started yesterday's game, the Sunday game. And it was a very interesting start from Braxton Garrett. The first two innings in particular, very interesting. Where you look at the box score and you see, okay, 2 innings of work, 6 Ks. Like, oh, okay, Braxy doing his thing. However, sandwiched in between that was a 3-run blast from Nick Castellanos, an absolute curveball, meatball extravaganza. Castellanos took absolutely deep, no doubt about it. Braxy he said it after the game, he wanted that one back. But take that pitch away, and boy, oh boy, Braxy was absolutely dealing early doors, striking out everyone, swinging and looking, and the pitch clock K as well. Throw that one in there, which is always great to see. So he ended his day. Let's have a look at the final line here for Brax, which didn't really do him justice overall, which kind of blends into the Andronati thing. Anyway, 5 1/3 back for Braxton Garrett. He gave up 5 hits and also 2 walks, but 8 Ks in there. 5 earned runs, though, unfortunately, including that one boom bar from Nick Castellanos. That was a 3-run shot. The other 2 runs came later in the game, where he left 2 runners on base. Andronati came in, and Andronati couldn't get the outs, and unfortunately coughed up the lead in that inning. Not optimal. So, in reality, with Brax, 5 earned runs over 5 1/3 is a touch unfair. I also just want to call out, by the way, like, as a guy that's relatively new to baseball, and when something just is a bit off and hard to understand, you sometimes have to question that. And what I'm talking about here is this situation where Braxton Garrett goes as far as he goes into the game. There are 2 runners on base, granted, but those runners end up scoring on a pitch that Andronati throws. And for whatever reason, those runs go against Braxton Garrett. It feels like there should be a secondary category for inherited and uninherited earned runs. Is that the right way of phrasing it? But you know what I'm saying? Like, Braxton Garrett gets tagged for 5 earned runs, but he didn't really give up those 5 runs. He gave up 3 of them. 2 of them were Andronati's fault because he couldn't get the outs. What's to say Braxy couldn't have got those outs? I don't know. Someone tell me, has this ever been a conversation before in baseball? Because in some ways I understand, but in other ways it doesn't kind of make sense. It feels like from a scoring perspective that we should look at runs that were given up by a different pitcher in a slightly different way because it slants a line like this. Anyway, that's a minor rant. It's not really a rant, but just an observation from a guy new to the game that questions everything. Because that's what you do, right? You question it. And often the answer is because, hey, that's how it's always been around here, guys. Which is often the answer that tells you it's the wrong answer. Nevertheless, to Braxton Garrett, great to see him back. And I must say, with the Luzardo back in town, with Braxy back in town, all of a sudden, things just feel different. Like that weekend series felt different, to be honest with you, where, you know, the early struggles for the Marlins, where you just were looking and thinking, can the starters even go 4 innings? When Jesus Lazaro's there and Braxton Garrett's there, everything hangs off the pitching going deep into games, obviously. And the struggles early in the year just really compounded the issues here. And so it feels a different Marlins club now straight away. On deck, obviously, Sixto Sanchez going this evening on Monday against the Tigers. Interested to see how deep Sixto can go into this game or any game for sure. But Sixto is kind of trickling along and getting his pitch count up there. We'll see. Can Sixto go 6 innings? Could we see a 6-inning outing from Sixto? Maybe. But the point I'm making here is this Marlins team, this Marlins rotation obviously looks completely different with Braxton Garrett in there and Jesus Luzardo. I put a tweet out there yesterday that Braxton Garrett, I just want to re-emphasize this point. Braxton Garrett, for me, even within the Marlins fan base, it's relatively small, but it's a close group, I would say. The fan base, I think, still heavily underappreciates Braxton Garrett. I don't think everyone fully believes in Braxton Garrett because obviously a first-round pick, the development was a touch slow. It was relatively discouraging. This was all kind of in an era where it was very much about the velo and the spin as continued. Braxy isn't quite that. And then the few sightings we had of Braxton Garrett, it wasn't overly encouraging. It was fine. But we got to a point where there was a roster decision to be made about Braxton Garrett before his breakout in 2023. There absolutely was. And look how different things are now with Brax. Like he's an absolute stalwart of this Marlins rotation. And as Marlins fans, I'm not sure if we just don't believe that 23 was real or if we would just, too much of the history lingers in our mind, like thinking, Braxy's never going to cut it, whatever it is. But as Marlins fans, we underappreciate Braxton Garrett. The rest of the league has barely heard of Braxton Garrett, to be honest with you. There's a few fantasy players and whatever, but listen, if you don't play fantasy baseball and you're a fan of another team, there's a really good chance that you have no idea who Braxton Garrett is. Braxton Garrett could be the best pitcher in Major League Baseball that no one's ever heard of. And that isn't a knock for Braxton Garrett. That's just the reality of Marlins baseball and the fact that Brax has the type of profile in terms of makeup and stuff that he does. Nevertheless, what we saw yesterday, his first game of the year against the Phillies lineup that is the second best. I think it is the second best average in Major League Baseball in terms of a contact team, a patience team lineup. That's the Phils. Braxy rolls in there and carves them up with 8 Ks. Yeah, he left a meatball to Castellanos. It happens. He barely throws his curveball. So it was encouraging to see him throwing it. I just wish it would have gone in the dirt rather than middle. Castellanos to absolutely take it deep. But that's really impressive from Braxton Garrett. Really impressive. 8 Ks against that lineup that is absolutely rolling right now. Really impressive. The question around Braxton Garrett, considering his years of control, is what happens with him? He isn't in arbitration. That usually says that the Rays, now the Marlins, would keep hold of him until he starts to enter that phase of his career. The other thing, though, is you also have to consider selling at the height of value. Have we seen Braxton Garrett's best year? Was 2023 the best year ever for Brax? We won't know in 24 because the injuries have already impacted his innings and likely he's not going to get to the number of innings that he did in 23. But you have to wonder, have we seen the best? And frankly, from what I've seen just in yesterday's game, I don't think we have. I think with Brax, there's still plenty of untapped potential there. No doubt. So again, I'll reiterate this point. Marlins fans, we're underestimating and undervaluing Braxton Garrett. And so's the rest of the fan base. Not that it really matters, the rest of the fan bases, but they are too. They are too. Very intrigued to see what the future holds for Braxton Garrett with the Marlins with this rebuild that is ensuing right now. Let's hit the first ad. Then I want to talk about Jesus Luzardo, who also returned this weekend and was mightily impressive also. Again, didn't quite go his way at the back end, but still was impressive. Before we do that, let's let you know about our good friends over at Policygenius. Yes, sir. We got the graphics pumped. Here we go. And guys, Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare your options from all of the top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Those award-winning agents will walk you through the whole process step by step, allowing you to easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find the magic number, your lowest price. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. All right, guys, back here with me, Peter Pratt, on Monday, the 13th of May. The Marlins avoided the sweep against the Phils. They walk it off. Manny Rivera, the walk-off hero, bounced off Soto's glove into the outfield. Doesn't matter. Nick Fortes steaming around. The Marlins walk it off. They haven't won many games this year, the Marlins, but the ones they are winning are usually pretty dramatic. I'm pretty sure that is 3 walk-offs in their last 5 wins, maybe even their last 4 wins. So when the Marlins win, it is usually in extras, and it is usually dramatic, which we love to see. So Braxton Garrett back. He's underrated. What does the future hold for Braxton Garrett? To be confirmed, but just great to see him back and absolutely carving up the Phillies, no doubt. Jesus Luzardo also returned. And frankly, with Jesus Luzardo, a similar story, although a slightly better one in terms of earned runs, because 5 2/3 for Jesus Luzardo. Just 4 hits, 1 walk, 8 Ks as well for Luzardo. He gave up 2 runs, both of them earned. He lowers his ERA for the year below 6, 5.97 for Jesus Luzardo. Okay, so for Jesus Luzardo, interesting one where in spring, Luzardo to me never quite looked right. He started the year kind of okay, but then kind of struggled. And now he's had this break. And then all of a sudden he's back. And it's like, boom, Luzardo's back. The Jesus Luzardo is back. And it was amazing to see. This is the type of guy that the Marlins need. This is the type of guy, really, that Peter Bendix needs, to be honest with you, because we all know how this is going to play out with Jesus Luzardo. The question is when. It's not an if traded situation. It is a when traded situation. And everything that's going to occur in the next few weeks will be Jesus Luzardo either reclaiming a building trade value or shrinking trade value. The primary issue around shrinking trade value would be is if he gets hurt again. That's going to be a big problem for the Fish. That is what they want to avoid. In terms of regaining value, it's just getting to that level that we saw last year. Exceeding it's probably unlikely at this point, considering the way Skip's managing games and managing starters. Skip is... He's not pushing the guys too far. There's no need to push anyone too far. The season's cooked. The primary objective here is to demonstrate quality, deliver quality innings, and not push anyone to their upper limits. There's no need. The games, whilst they do matter, particularly to Skip, because that's how Skip is assessed. But overall for the Marlins, right now, particularly for those guys that they are looking to move on for, it's about shop window, health. Those 2 factors combined. Put them in the shop window to perform, stay healthy. That's how you translate the talent to prospects, which is what Peter Bendix is seeking. Jesus Luzardo right now, considering 2 3/4 years of control, is just about the highest value trade asset that the Marlins have. A lot of people don't think the Marlins have many trade assets, full stop. Luzardo definitely is one of them. And we know there has been conversations during the offseason with Luzardo. Frankly, Luzardo could make any club better. And frankly, there's a lot of clubs in the hunt this year because that's kind of the way it goes in baseball now. When you've got this extra wild card per league and there's not, a lot of teams are kind of jostling for the middle ground. It's going to keep a lot of teams interested for longer. And then you get to a point of, do you have a Kim Ang type GM that's looking to make some moves, looking to maybe go all in during the year and go and get someone like Jesus Luzardo? Have to give up multiple top-end prospects. We'll wait and see. I'm very intrigued. But for right now, for the Marlins fans, we're interested in. It's great to see Luzardo back. That was by far, in my opinion, his best outing of the year. The first outing from memory was like okay, but I feel like this was a lot better. So that's really encouraging. For Luzardo, it's about staying healthy now. And the Marlins managing him, his workload, and keeping him healthy. But we need to see this type of Luzardo back, no doubt. And all of a sudden, it goes Luzardo, Brax, boom, boom. Those 2 guys effectively your planned workhorses for 2024, I think it's great to have them also back aligned to that 1-2 punch. Boom, boom. I know there's no Yuri and I know there's no Sandy, but I feel like it's, just aligning the rotation in a way where you've got that 1-2 punch. Impressive. Let's briefly talk about Andrew Nardi and Tanner Scott after the break. And I also want to talk about Paul Skeens and Yuri Perez. Before we do that, let's hit our final ad of the day and let you know about our good friends over at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app, and it has more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports or players. You pick more or less than on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season is officially on the way, no doubt. Don't miss your chance. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less than and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. PrizePicks has something for every sports fan, from baseball, basketball, to the League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Shohei Ohtani, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham, a la Madrid, all in the same entry. So all you have to do is simply download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today. It's PrizePicks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, guys, final segment here with me, Peter Pratt, on Monday, the 13th of May. Marlins in Detroit. So's AJ Puck, by the way. Sounds like AJ Puck could be back today. Finally, the bullpen getting a boost. We're going to talk about the bullpen now in a sec. However, I just want to go back on one point from yesterday, speaking about roster moves. Tristan Gray getting the call. Boy, oh boy, he's been a fun guy to watch throughout spring in AAA. He's exactly as advertised, Tristan Gray. He's a fun guy. Fun guy. When you talk about bat swing speed, Tristan Gray, my gut feel is he's right up there with Jesus Sanchez. Boy, oh boy, he wants to do damage on every pitch. It doesn't matter where you throw it. Tristan Gray is taking big cuts. Frankly, I like it. Just let him go. Unleash the Gray. Let's see what cooks. Tristan Gray did get an at-bat yesterday in a leverage spot, came out and struck out on 3 pitches, all of them swinging. It was exactly as advertised for Tristan Gray. He's going to walk into a few home runs. No doubt about it. He ended up playing a little bit of time over at third base. Very interesting. Interested to see how much of a leash he has, how many opportunities he has. Speaking about third base, just briefly, I didn't have this noted down on the agenda, but I did want to talk about it. Jake Burger, Jake the Snake. He was on fire to start the year. He was the only Marlins offensive producer in the first couple of weeks until he got hurt with that oblique. Unfortunately for Jake Burger, this was not a good series for him. He was looking extremely rusty and out of touch. Like the timing was nowhere for Burger. So it's tough. It's tough coming back. You've been out for a few weeks. You've lost it. You got to get yourself back up to speed. There's no slander here for Burger. None. But I just wanted to highlight that he's back and the fact that he kind of slipped under the radar being completely terrible this whole series against the Phils. Tristan Gray's up as well. Bit of third base action for Gray. We'll see Vidal Brujan, Otto Lopez seem to be kind of holding it down at the middle. Tim Anderson, it appears, dealing with some lower back issues. Tim Anderson, whilst being okay defensively, offensively, putrid. Brujan really kicked on. Otto Lopez right now is showing it like he has to play every day. Brujan, Lopez, let's get Gray in at third base as well. Why not? Burger can DH, Bell at first. Let's roll. Let's just see what's cooking here. Why not? Speaking of cooking and speaking of bullpens, because I was talking about AJ Puck, sounds like he's going to be back for this series, but he's going back to the pen. And I'm interested to see how they ease him in. They'll ease him in, obviously. We'll see. Actually, with Sixto going this evening, there's a good chance that, the bullpen might be tested. We'll see. But Andrew Nardi, let's briefly talk about him. Boy, oh boy, Andrew Nardi has just regressed to an unbelievable level in terms of this inherited runner situation, where it was the core strength last year. As a fireman, he had the biggest hose in Major League Baseball. He put every fire out pretty much. This year, he hasn't even got a water pistol put any fires out. It's sabotage, to be honest with you. It's self-sabotage. I don't know what's going on with Nardi. The thing is with Skip trusts him. But at this point, I mean, the reality is, in some ways, who really cares? But I feel like you need, Skip's persevering with, it's going to turn. It has to turn, right? It's going to turn. It has to. When's it going to turn? That's kind of the phase we're in at this point with Nardi, where we're all just wondering when it's just going to revert back to 2023. So I'm watching Nardi closely. I don't think it's a roster risk situation, but I do wonder if we need to maybe ease up on Nardi with these inherited runners situation. Tanner Scott, though, on the other hand, guys, is fully back. Tanner Scott strolled out there yesterday. Skip just said to him, listen, Tanner, you got 2 innings here, brother. It's time to roll. And Tanner Scott just, there was a walk or two sprinkled in there. But in spring, early in the year, I was worried. I'm not going to lie. It was a slow start for Tanner Scott. But when you've got your eyeballs and listen, some of you guys may not be watching the games as closely anymore. I get it. It's a Sunday. There's other things to do, maybe. I was watching a game, I can tell you, through my eyeballs, and I'd only had 1 glass of wine, so my vision wasn't even that impaired. But through my eyes, I can tell you that Tanner Scott is back. The confidence is back. The stuff is still insane. Tanner Scott, again, this goes back similar to Jesus Luzardo. For Tanner Scott, though, it's even more critical that he's healthy. First thing, he's healthy. The stuff will always play. The stuff will always look sexy on Savant and all the other metrics you want to look at. So as long as Tanner Scott is healthy, the Marlins are going to cook big time with this one. There's a few other names out there, but I'm telling you right now that Tanner Scott is a top 3 in terms of value, in terms of relievers that will be available towards the deadline. The Marlins should hang on to Tanner Scott as long as they can to leverage that situation. We saw it last year when the Marlins were buying. They ended up having to spend a huge penny on David Robertson, who was absolutely terrible. So they need to hang on to the deadline as best they can. But Tanner Scott needs to stay healthy. It would be an absolute disaster for the Marlins if anything happens at all to Tanner Scott. However, we have not seen any signs that there could be injury on the horizon for Tanner Scott. The reality is, and hence why he was out there yesterday for 2 innings, the Marlins are terrible this year. They have near 0 save opportunities. And because of that, Tanner Scott's workload is being managed because the team aren't giving him the opportunities. So the team being crap probably helps Tanner Scott to stay healthy because he's not going to be out there like back-to-back-to-back days or anything silly like that. Nevertheless, my eyes are telling me he is back. He will bring in a massive haul for the Marlins via trade. No doubt about it. And it won't be tons of, it won't be a top 50 prospect or whatever. No super headline name. But I am certain that Peter Bendix will be able to convert Tanner Scott, half a year of Tanner Scott, a third of a year of Tanner Scott, into multiple prospects that will have the opportunity to flourish within this Marlins system. I know it. Final comment here, and then we got to get out of here because we're almost at the 30-minute mark. Paul Skeens, big hype. Big hype. No doubt about it. There was, and I get it. There's some fun stories linked to Skeens, obviously. And he's got his girlfriend that's famous and all sorts. So I get that. And he's been on fire in the minor leagues, no doubt about it. However, I just did want to highlight briefly that Yuri Perez is still the best prospect in many ways in baseball. I know he's out of sight and out of mind at this point, but Yuri Perez is still that guy. I look back at Yuri's Marlins debut as well, which was hyped, but not to the degree of Skeens. Skeen's debut, 4 innings, 6 hits, 3 walks, 7 Ks, 3 earned runs. Not bad. Not bad. Yuri Perez debut, 4 2/3. Just the 4 hits, just the 2 walks. Same 7 Ks, but just the 2 earned runs. Interested to see how Skeens goes, both in terms of the production on the field. A lot of people seem to be talking about the health concerns with Skeens too. We've already seen that with Yuri Perez. I'm very interested to see how the Pirates manage him generally. What the Marlins did last year with their management of Yuri was interesting and unconventional, I would say. Broadly, whatever they did, it kept him healthy kind of ish through 23, and then unfortunately misses the whole season. Nevertheless, I just did want to highlight that for all the hype that Skeens has had, Yuri Perez, in my opinion, still has the highest ceiling. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen, guys. I've been Peter Pratt. I'll look forward to being back with you. Well, later today, actually, is going to be a double episode, which we'll publish a little bit later on to give you, some time to get this one ingested. But there's going to be a first ever Mailbag Monday, where if you have submitted a question on Twitter to me, then I will go through every single one of them, answering your questions on a Mailbag Monday bonus episode of Locked On Marlins. I look forward to seeing you then.